Welcome to this month's little training seminar. We'll call this one Change is Hard and That's Okay, to help us determine if and when we're ready to change and then the proper steps to take after that. I'm happy to bring in Judy Terrell, a super special woman and a good friend of mine. She's got a master's in psychology with a focus and specialty in addiction. Judy, thank you very much for taking some time to chat with us today.
Yeah, love it, Jim. Thank you for inviting me.
So let's dive in. I think we'll kind of focus this around exercise and nutrition, with the understanding that a lot of what we'll talk about has some significant crossover into all different areas of our life, which could benefit or potentially not benefit from some change. And for starters, I feel like people want to change. They know they need to change, but perhaps aren't necessarily in the right frame of mind, the right point in their life to make said change. So given your education and your background, how can people know for sure when is the perfect time for them to be able to make some positive, sustainable changes?
Yeah, so great question. And the title of our presentation that we just said, change is hard. I'm going to dive right into that because, we happen to live in a time of human history and the evolution of our generations, where when I'm 59 years old. And so when I was younger, there was a phrase like, whatever didn't kill you made you stronger. So in other words, things that were hard, like there was an unspoken kind of thought, like, push into it because it's going to make you better when you come out of the other side. The evolution of our thinking in our country right now, in my observation, is that we've now moved from, if it's hard, you shouldn't have to do it.
Yeah.
If it's hard, like, clearly avoid that, because it will hurt you. It will somehow weaken you. It'll, so, and if things are hard, something's obviously wrong because it shouldn't be hard, right?
Yeah.
It's
I
an unspoken
apologize
kind of
on
group think, right?
I
So when we
apologize on
talk,
behalf of all millennials.
exactly. I don't know how that came to be, but it's definitely observed, that is like the unspoken current in our group thinking. So even, I'm a baby boomer, and people older than I, our generation and above me, we're swimming in this culture. So you can't help but be somewhat influenced it, but definitely younger generations than I are enmeshed in it. It's almost like the fish that's in water who can't see the water. You've been born into it, you don't even see that as there's any, other option for that.
Right.
Many of the people that were going to be listening to this are kind of maybe in the, like, baby boomer and older, and remember when when hard wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but we're still, and then younger people are like, what, but I want to start with that. So, like, the first thing when it comes to, like, you're recognizing that, I don't know, you're want to make some changes. Like you said, Jim, this spills into all areas of our life, but for our purposes here, with either exercise or your eating habits, any change, we are habituated beings. Like, our species survives because our brains, like, they get patterns and then we repeat the patterns, so they become automatic. We function because we don't wake up every morning and have to say, okay, how do I walk again? It's
Right.
patterned into our brains. And so when the patterns are working for us, like walking, it's like, yay. But when the patterns are not bringing us where we want to go, like, I don't know, you get stuck in a junk food habit, or, your pattern is you come home from work and you sit on the couch, even though you in some part of you wants to exercise, but we got into a habit pattern. And that is now, it's hard to break because it's been repetitive in our brains and in our biochemistry. It's not hardwired, it's definitely changeable, but the beginning phase of that is hard because, like anything, you have to get enough repetitions to get something to be then autopilot, right? So the number one thing I want to address is, like, you can be driven to want to change something, but then when you view it as hard, if you're of the mindset that hard is bad and should be avoided, you're dead in the water before you even get started, right? So the first thing that has to happen is, kind of do some self, observations of your own operating system in your brain. And if you recognize there is like an aversion to things that are hard, you got to reframe that. Like, so hard things that are hard could be, to avoid, and they're discomfort and they're difficult, or it could be like exciting and, new and a curiosity. Like what if I'm going to step out of this behavior, is it going to be hard, or is it just going to be like something new and exciting maybe, right? So you got to kind of switch out of the hard is bad. When I'm teaching interval classes right now for groups that I have in my studio, I say, all right, this is going to be hard, but like hard is good, hard, good, and like, let's go, good, this is going to be good. And I'm doing it. I say it like 17 times because I want to get the repetition in there, and reframing it so that you have a different energy to address whatever it is that you're going to be looking to change or just execute, like in the case of that intervals.
Yeah. I think that's a really good point in reframing how we kind of perceive the hard. One other thing, kind of hammering the millennials here. I feel like we kind of fall into that trap of instant gratification, right? We want something to be easy and have it right now. That instant gratification really gets in the way of the benefits of the delayed success, let's call it. When you're in that mindset, that immediacy mindset, yeah, it's easier to have the 6 Oreos right now because I can't equate not eating that with being able to eat, move, and sleep better.
Because that's in the future. It's not
12,
right now.
Right,
Yeah.
12 months from now.
Right.
How do we kind of shift and change that mindset so that we can delay that gratification and we don't fall victim to that immediacy of the enjoyment of eating 6 Oreos?
Got it. So I have a twofold answer to that. And some people are going to resonate to one method I'm going to give you, and some people are going to resonate to the other. And some people will it depends on what they're trying to do. And you can choose either one of these. They both will work. Like I said, sometimes some people are morning people, some people are night people. So you might resonate to one more than the other, but both will work. Okay. So you want to change. You got to ask yourself, like, why do I want to change? Like, what am I looking to get? Like, I want to eat less fast food. I don't know, just to throw that out, or let's just say that one. Well, you don't want to just eat less fast food. You have a reason for wanting to eat less fast food. You want to have better energy. You want to save money. You want to lose some body fat. You want to make a different choice then so that you're eating more whole food. There's like there's an underlying reason that you are that is appealing to you. That is like a go-to goal that when you think about it, it creates a desire, a want, right? An aspiration. I don't want to just not eat fast food. Let's use your Oreo things. That's perfect. Like, I want to eat these Oreos right now because they're going to taste really good, but I want to fit in my clothes this summer. I want to wear my bathing suit and not feel self-conscious. Like, that would make me feel good about my being, like, to not have to be self-conscious in public, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got to identify not just like what it is that you're looking to change, but why. Like, what are you going to get out of it from a like, and usually that's something that you want. It's a want goal. Like, and so when you think about, I want to not eat Oreos because I want to feel better in my body, feel more comfortable aesthetically, let's just say. And why do I want that? Because it's going to make me feel better. Like, I want to feel good. We as beings are driven by 2 things. One of them is feeling good. We want to feel good. We want that dopamine rush. We want that serotonin hit, and so the things that we are looking to change, we have to figure out, like, what is it that I want? What's making me want that? And then really like visualize it, but not just visualize it, like take it on inside. Make yourself, how will I feel when I'm in this body that I'm looking to create by not eating these Oreos? So you're getting that feel good experience in your being now, right? Not 12 months from now or 6 months from now, because we're driven to want to feel good. So now when you're looking at the Oreos, you pull up, yeah, there's no denying. I don't care who you are. Like, nobody looks at the Oreos and say, oh, like they're not going to taste good. Like, I have clients that are like, no, I look at XYZ food now and I don't really, it doesn't look like it tastes good to me. I'm like, really? Is that really true? Like, I think like if you eat an Oreo, like it's going to light the dopamine receptors in the center of your brain up like a Christmas tree. So yeah, it's going to taste good. And I think going the route of trying to convince yourself that it doesn't is going to fail.
Yeah, long term for sure. It
Right? So
might
let's
get
not
you
go that route. There's no
approval.
denying that this is like a crack cocaine sugar thing that's going to hit you. You're going to feel amazing for 2 seconds. Okay.
Right.
But when you're facing that down, you then have to have something else that you can pull up. Yeah. But I remember when I wore my skinny jeans and I was trotting down the street, or whatever, like in a social setting, I felt fantastic. You got to have that in the moment to pull up, to give you the motivation to then make a decision, which is more important to me.
Right.
Right. So that's a moving to goal. That feeling that way, that body I'm going to get if I don't have those Oreos or I monitor them in some way is going to make me feel good. You got to pull that feel good because we're driven to feeling good. Now, the other side that I was mentioning, and honestly, this one works more for me, I will tell you, is that we are driven to feel good, but we're also very driven to avoid pain. Okay. So if you're looking at those Oreos, like I look at those Oreos and I say, there's no doubt they would taste fantastic. If I start to have those Oreos, I tend to want to have the entire sleeve of them. And so if I do that, I'm going to feel like horrible. Like in 5 minutes, I'm going to have a stomach thing. I'm going to feel like swollen. That would blow up my digestive system. Like I'm going to, and then tomorrow when I go to get dressed, I'm still going to have the residual aftermath of that. My jeans are going to be tight around my belly. Like I'm going to be self-conscious of that as I'm trying to, teach a class or whatever. That's painful to me. And now I'm looking at those Oreos. I'm saying, yeah, they're going to taste really good for a second. But if I do that, I'm going to have this pain that's going to take me 24, 36, 48 hours to like get through. And that's aversive.
Yeah.
And I want to avoid that pain. So if I can make that pain greater than the pleasure I'm going to get for a fleeting second about those Oreos, I'm driven to not do that.
Right. Yeah. And that makes it easier too, because I'm sure you hear it a lot. I hear it a lot. I lack the willpower. I lack the self-control, the self-discipline. And yeah, you need to tap into those things in those situations, but it becomes a heck of a lot easier when you have one of those two things that you mentioned top of mind. This is not eating these right now is going to make me feel good in the moment. I'll feel accomplished, and then it'll make me feel good come summertime when I'm able to have my swimsuit on and feel full confidence. Or passing on these Oreos right now, I know later tonight I'm not gonna have to spend time in the bathroom, and
Exactly.
I'm gonna avoid feeling like crap for a couple of hours. So that's where the willpower comes from in keeping those two things.
But you know what, Jim, I want to comment on the willpower thing, because when it comes to like sheer willpower is going to, you may be able to use willpower for a couple times, but if you're relying on that, it fatigues. Okay. Yeah. But in the context of what we're talking right now, willpower is by nature trying to apply your will against something that you're in your head very strongly have you now correlated with making yourself feel better. And that is, the Oreos are going to make me feel better. You're not doing those other two things. You're not saying, yes, but I would also feel even more better. Like if I feel good in my clothes, like right now, it's like, I know those Oreos will feel good. I've had a shitty day. I deserve a treat. Other people get to eat them. Why don't I get to eat them? Blah, 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 And right now it's like, so those Oreos making you feel good has now morphed into like the most, like the most ecstatic thing on the planet. And you're going to white knuckle it with your willpower to not have it. That will fail.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even if you make it through that episode, 2 hours later, you're going to down the half gallon of ice cream that's in your freezer.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
Right. That's
Like,
true.
don't rely on willpower. That's the last tool that you are like desperately clawing on when the other ones are not working. But the other ones will work
Yeah.
because if you're tapping into your own emotion, either a go-to where, or a reversion, willpower is almost like it's not even necessary because you're using human nature to drive your behavior by
Right.
by feeling, like what we're driven to or driven again, away from.
Right.
That's not willpower. That's circumventing willpower.
So for a lot of people, they wake up one morning, their clothes don't fit the way they want them to. In the back of their mind, they've known that they haven't been as active, they haven't been as diligent in paying attention to what they're eating. They know they've been gaining weight slowly over the last 5, 10, 15 years. But that one morning that they put some specific pair of pants on, it finally hits home. They know they need to change to help them lose weight, get their energy back, get their confidence back. But they might not necessarily want to change. Are there, and of course, everybody's individual, but in your, working with clients, in your education and experience, are there key indicators, kind of broad stroke, that you can point to and say, okay, if you've got these 2 or 3 things aligned in your life, you're in a good position to change. And if you don't, maybe focus on improving those areas before you try and tackle a larger thing.
I don't know if what's the question? I don't know if I got the question in there.
So are there,
Like,
are
how
there,
can you kind of intervene and get yourself to that point where, like, to push yourself over that edge?
yeah, yeah, kind of like the willpower in avoiding food. We can't necessarily force our way to be fit. We're going to run up into a wall at some point by simply just trying to try too hard.
Mhm.
Um, is there a couple of things that people can kind of take a step back, look at their current situation, look at their life, and see, are these aspects of my life in order right now that makes it easier for me to focus on my weight loss? Or are these aspects of my life in a bit disarray and maybe focusing on weight loss isn't the best option right now?
Got it. So I guess what I want to say to that is, I guess 2 things are coming to mind. Number 1 is, you know, we're living in a time of human history again where when I was younger, it's like you had some shit hit the fan, and then there was like, something blew up, a crisis, whatever, and then things calmed down for another 3 months or 4 months or half a year, whatever. It's my observation that that is not the case now. It's a crisis into a crisis into a crisis into a crisis, and they're legit and they're big. Or there's like death by 1,000 cuts, like your IT doesn't work, and then, like little things, but they're like relentless. Like, your phone operating system just upgraded, now you don't know how to use it, and you got to make that call,
Right.
just a million little things or big things. So my point is, if you're waiting, like if you're trying to get to a state where, like, things are going to calm down and then I'm going to get like a cup, I'll be able to like wrap my mind around this really important behavior change I want to make, but it's just there's too much going on right now. You may lose your life. You know what I mean? Like, because if you're waiting for that to calm down moment, it may never come,
Right.
you know?
It probably won't ever come, really.
Yeah. So, so how do you get yourself to kind of like take it on in the middle of crises, right? And so the first thing that comes to my mind is chunk it up. People are like, I want to start an exercise plan. And then they go online and they look on, it's like 7 days a week or 5 days a week, and you got to get to a gym and you got to have a bike and you got to, and it's like, you know what I mean? So it's like, take on one thing. It's like, can you take on a 15-minute walk on a break? Like just like put it into small steps, and don't think you have to do it all right out the gate. right? Same thing
Yeah.
with the food. You know, I have a couple that I'm working with in Ohio that we just did a session last night, and the one partner, she took like I gave her a plan, and the first thing she had to do was get the Mountain Dew out, because she's like using, it's like an IV in her arm, regular Mountain Dew, okay?
Yeah.
And you know, there's a whole mess of other things. What's the right macronutrient balance in their meals, and you know, what's the organic food versus, you know, processed, and blah blah blah. But like that was big for her, because it's like it's a large part of her consumption, and it's this plain sugar, and it's messing up her energy. And so that was the thing that we focused on, and she was successful. She got it out. It was 6 weeks between our last session, but that's out. And now we can focus in on, you know, the next thing I said, all right, let's get the timing of meals down now, so we can get some nutrition going on a regular basis. And we'll talk about what you're going to eat. Like, I just want you to get like, because she was drinking Mountain Dew, and then therefore she wasn't hungry for a meal, right? So just chunking up is like, you know, when it comes to exercise, like I said, you know, maybe you want to, you know, a lot of times I have clients say, well, is it worth anything? Like, I know you're supposed to exercise 5 days a week for 30 minutes each, and if I can't do that, is it going to do me any good? I'm like, seriously? Your steps are at 1,000 a day because you're working from home and you're not even getting up. Like, so if you get up for a 15-minute walk every, you know, like 3 days a week, is that going to be better than not doing it? Absolutely.
Yeah.
So like chunking it up. Don't wait till, you know, get the, you know, rev up the energy to take on the whole thing. Because, you know, so what are smaller steps that you can do that are now on the path of the goal of being a regular exerciser, you know, 5, 7 days a week, whatever it is that your goal is.
Yeah. I was speaking to a woman earlier today who's got, you know, close to 100 pounds that she'd like to lose. And she's frustrated because she can't do HIIT style workouts. And she thinks that, you know, because her heart rate is up, that's the most advantageous thing. And she kind of puts off the walking. And I was explaining to her, like, right now, walk as much as you can and focus on your nutrition, because that's gonna drive the needle more than 2 or 3 30-minute HIIT sessions during the week.
And
And
you know what, Jim, to go back to our beginning here, when she's doing that HIIT and she feels ineffective, and painful, like it's when you're 100 pounds to lose, I don't care what kind of HIIT you're doing, it's not going to feel all that great. You know what I
right,
mean?
right,
So there's that pain, but not to avoid what you're doing. Like the pain now is it correlated with the exercise. And so it's just, she's not going to sustain that even, you
no,
know, but the walking, you know, at a pace that's comfortable for her, now it's making her feel good. She's getting the stroking by the end of it. That's going to move you more into the behavior than to try and force yourself into something that you think you need to do at a certain level that is
right,
now painful for you to do psychologically, emotionally, and physically.
yeah,
And
yeah,
if she does, if she did it more than once, I'd be surprised.
yeah, yeah. And that mindset shift is really the most important thing, because, you know, using the example I used a few minutes ago, the person wakes up, their pants don't fit, they realize they got 50 pounds to lose. They immediately sign up at the gym. They go 5 days, Monday through Friday, for a week, 2 weeks. They've eaten
Can't
nothing but,
walk now because they're so
yeah,
sore.
right. They've eaten nothing but salads for 14 straight days, and it sucks and they hate it. And then they stop because they felt like they needed to do everything all at once.
And it was a
And
painful experience. And now you're going to run away from painful experiences to drive home the point. I oftentimes will start somebody off with an exercise situation. Like if let's just say I'm doing a personal training and somebody, I'm starting them off, I am going to compromise effective like goal, like for the physical, like body change, to enjoyment every single time. I want them to leave having enjoyed what we did, because in the initial stages of trying to start an exercise plan, if you're not enjoying it, If it's too hard or too difficult, or there's barriers to getting to the place or whatever, like that's that at the beginning stages of trying to get repetitions of a new pattern in, it's not going to go anywhere. Like if you enjoy it though, and now you're seeing yourself doing it on a regular basis, you can then be upping the intensity and upping the effectiveness as you go, but you're doing it. So I'll
Yeah.
compromise effectiveness in the early stages of starting a workout program for somebody every single time for enjoyment.
Yeah. That's super interesting. I've never actually thought about seeing, trying to do everything all at once, as kind of shuttling yourself towards that pain that's ultimately going to make you resent everything that you're doing. It's actually quite fascinating. So how do you change that mindset? I know you mentioned earlier, chunk up your goals, simple, small, little incremental things that you can chip away at over time. But once you start that, like you said, the enjoyment is there, and it starts to snowball in a positive way. But if you're kind of paralyzed by inaction because you've ran towards that pain time and time again, and now you're avoiding it, how do you take that first step again another time, but do it in a positive way that's going to help you get where you want to be long term?
So I'm going to say something here. It might be a little shocking because it's like very counterintuitive. It's my observation. I'm in this industry. I just turned 59 like a week ago, and I started when I was 18. So it's like 40 years, which blows my mind. But because of that sheer like the length of time and so many people I've worked with and the trends and the patterns that I've observed, I would like to tell you that there's a way, like, people put a bathing suit on because they got a vacation coming and they want that to be their move to goal, and it's going to make them feel good. And, that might be the thing to help you to then start on the path of a behavior change. That is not as effective. Everybody who comes in will come into me. I've asked this question so many times, thousands of people. I'm like, why now? What made you come into my office now? Why is right now the time that you're motivated and you made this appointment to start up this thing? And every single time, Jim, 98%, it's something like this. I never let people take pictures of me, but somehow someone got a shot and then I saw myself and the pain of that. My granddaughter said, "Grandma, you're fat." These are true. I've heard these. And that was like, oh my God, to the person, to the grandmother. And out of the, this is a loving child, they didn't meet.
Yeah,
they can't say, well, this person's just jealous of me, or this person's trying to hurt me or whatever. It's like, oh my God, you know what I mean? My granddaughter said that to me. This is true too. A child that was at high school said, "Mom, I'm embarrassed to have you, come to school." Like, or someone doesn't get on the scale and it's like, the washer, the dryer's tightening my jeans. That's why, a million rationalizations, and they don't get on the scale. But then they get on the scale, and what they thought was like 10 pounds is 50, because we delude ourselves, to avoid feeling bad. So honestly, if you're looking to make a behavior change, and this is the reverse of what will get you to stay doing something, like you want to be having it enjoyable, but if you want to get the motivation to make the move, get on the scale, put on the clothes. I have people that from the pandemic, they were working from home. They've been living in sweats for 2 years. They put on their work clothes. They can't go to work now that the offices are coming back because none of their clothes fit. But they've avoided that. But the clothes not fitting is now, it's like, take a picture, look at yourself in the mirror, go out for a walk and then be so breathless because you've only been doing 1,000 steps a day for, 2 years. Like it's like, you have to have that, oh my God, the pain of being where I am right now, you got to heighten it, because that's going to motivate the beginning motivation of the change. Now that's not going to work when you start to make the behavioral changes, right? If the thing that you're doing is painful.
Right.
But we already talked about that. But the doing what you are doing, that's kept you in the state you're in, if you make that painful, we are going to try to avoid the pain, right?
Yeah.
avoiding the pain is what you're going to do when you look at the scale and you're like shell shocked, because that pain is so great. You want to now avoid having that happen tomorrow when you weigh yourself. I got to do something.
Yeah.
So you're using that to your benefit to motivate the start.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. You're looking at your situation and saying, I can't allow this to get any worse. I need to do something now.
Right. That pain level has now jumped up a notch, and it's like, we'll sit in uncomfortableness for a long time. But when it gets to outright, when he goes up that notch, it's like, now it's too hot. It's too hot. I cannot be here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think part of the trouble is too, people don't equate, at least all the time. It might be floating around in the back of their mind, but it's not like an omnipresent thought where people equate their excess weight with their mortality. It's just like, it's 10 pounds, it's 20 pounds, no big deal. But, as you age and that's still sitting there, I mean, imagine carrying around, I shared this on Facebook a while ago. Imagine walking around with 2 20-pound dumbbells in each hand all day, every day, and you couldn't put them down. That's exactly what you're doing if you have 40 pounds that you need to lose. Your knees hurt, your back hurts, your arms hurt. You're not going to sleep all that well.
Jim, I actually take the 40-pound dumbbell and make someone stand up, and I have them hold it.
Yeah.
And then I tell them, imagine getting on the treadmill, like I wouldn't want to either, you know what I mean? But now, and I also do it when people lost 40 pounds, and then I have them take the 40. I'm like, this is how much lighter you are to put that energy into other things in your life now,
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that's a way to drive it home experientially. So the person, like, that uncomfortableness, if I picked up 2 40-pound dumbbells or 2 20 pounds and 40 pounds and thought about running, that would be enough to like motivate me to want to not have that.
Yeah, for sure.
That pain would be that's what I was talking about, calling up in your own existence what it would feel like. And if it's pain, the painfulness, I don't want that.
So
what do I need to do?
the key themes I'm hearing from you is reframe your mindset to get in a position where you can be successful with change.
Yes. And the number one thing is hard is good.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid. I can do hard. Like, I don't have to push back from it. I can handle hard. I can do hard. I've had a lot of sex in my life, like I don't like it, but like, I don't have to run away from it.
Right. Yeah. The second thing is think in terms of feeling good or avoiding pain long-term. Chunk up your goals, small daily actions that can help you get where you want to be over the next 6 or 12 months. And while it might be difficult and challenging and force you outside your comfort zone, one of the best things you say to get started is to actually realize how sort of teetering on the edge your situation might be at the present moment by
heighten your awareness of the discomfort of your current situation. Yes.
There you go. Said it perfect.
Yes.
Step on the scale, put on that favorite dress of yours that doesn't fit.
Right.
Just to let yourself know, hey, I need to do something here.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Anything else?
Those are powerful things right there, honestly, and you're using human psychology in a way to help yourself to avoid having to just willpower.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, no, I think and even just like reflecting on, like, having heard this podcast now, for those of you who are listening, just think about your own experiences with what, avoidance of uncomfortableness and, wanting to feel like the pleasures. And generally speaking, we will overly equate the pleasure of eating the Oreos and then say, well, I don't care about the aftermath. It's like, you need to kind of like be bringing both. You gotta underemphasize the pleasure of it and then increase the aftermath in the moment, and then ask yourself, what is my, it's not delaying long-term gratification. It's saying, who do I want to be in this moment? Do I want to eat the Oreos and own the path that's going to take me on? Or do I want to not have them, take the discomfort in the moment, but like be on the path where that's going to lead me? Where do I want to end? Like, what's my aspiration? Like it's almost like, what's your value? Like these decisions are based off bigger things, but in the moment you're valuing the Oreos over a higher quality of life,
Yeah.
only because you're not really thinking about it in that moment.
Right. Yeah. And these conversations are really critical, but they don't market themselves well. So nobody talks about it. It's all take this pill or drink this shake and, feel awesome.
Oh God, absolutely. Yeah.
But, in reality, these are the conversations that we should be diving into. And, you've got a couple of decades more experience in this industry than I do. So I certainly learned a bunch in just 40 minutes or so. So this was great.
Awesome. Yeah, I got the lines to show. I got these Zoom meetings. I have to have the right lighting. I have the wisdom and I have the skin to go with it. The decades on the planet. I want to add one thing to what you just said, because I often say to a client, okay, you have to say to yourself, if eating XYZ is mutually exclusive from having the body I want to live in ultimately, right? If they're mutually exclusive, which one's more important to me? Because they're mutually exclusive. They are, but we'll dilute it. I can have a little bit, it's not going to mess me up.
Yeah.
But if that's what you're doing all the time, it is messing you up. Or if having some is now going to lead to more, that's messing you up. So, but we'll say, I should be able to have this. It's not fair that I can't have that and have the body. And then we fight that. The reality is, if you're overeating, highly calorically dense food on a regular basis, and you're over what you're burning, you cannot have that and that body. They do not go together. No way, shape, or form. You sticking that puzzle piece into that puzzle, okay?
Yep.
Bringing that reality up. So which one am I choosing right now? And you may choose the Oreos on certain days. I don't care about the body right now. This is what I'm choosing, but you're choosing it consciously, and that's different.
Yeah.
Because now the next time you ask yourself the question, you might choose a different one. But when you're right into autopilot, there's no choice. It's choosing you. You're just running a script. I often say to myself, I'll be damned if I'm going to be a science rat. You know what I mean? Like I'm an experimental rat that's just right on. Like I'm just doing the conditioned behavior.
Yeah.
No frontal brain awareness at all.
Yeah.
Like, that's painful to me, unacceptable. That's going to get me to stand there and say, all right, what am I doing?
Yeah. And that leads you towards mindless eating. You're just kind of doing what everybody else is doing, whatever's in front of you, you're going to eat, and you're going to eat until you feel overly stuffed, which is just over time, you're going to consume more calories than you're burning. That same sort of approach has people stuck in unhealthy relationships for far too long.
As you said at the beginning, this is not just about the food and exercise, right?
Unhealthy work environments for far too long. Just that not taking that proactive approach to give it a little bit of thought.
Right.
Just pause before you eat something. How is this serving me now? How am I going to feel about it? And how
is it in line with my larger goals, like for myself?
Yeah.
Not a delayed gratification about the goal, but like, is this who I want to be? Do I want to be the person who, like people like say, oh, you're the Oreo eater, whatever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like I said, it's an important conversation that needs to be had. A lot of times with ourselves, right? We need to be honest with ourselves so we can put ourselves in a position to change and change in a way that we want.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And using the emotional component, I want to change the way that's going to make me feel better, or I'm going to change the way that's going to help me to avoid feeling bad.
Yeah.
Those are those are the two, when it comes to human psychology, that's it. Avoidance of pain and driven to pleasure. That's it. That's how we operate. There's no other operating system.
That's true. So where can people reach out to you? Where can they find you?
Yep, I have an amazing new website that's only up for about a month or so. It's judyterrell.com, easy to remember. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, not as much. So Facebook is I have more things on my studio page, Judy Terrell's training and coaching. But the website will direct you to all those other things too. So judyterrell.com, click on that. There's actually like some free video, 5-series video series that if you just go there and fill out the form, you can get on 5 weight loss tips for over 50, but they really apply to anybody, but men and women both. So that would be a nice gift coming out of this, because there's some things on there we didn't talk about. They're based on the underlying motivation that we just talked about, but some specific things that might be an aid. So check that out.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it, Judy. Always great to
Always a
chat.
pleasure, Jim.
All right, welcome to part 2 of Change is Hard and That's Okay, our live Q&A portion with Judy Terrell. Although you'll be watching this on replay, so not live for you, but live for us. Judy, thanks for spending some additional time with us this week. We touched on a lot of good things over 40-45 minutes in our earlier conversation, and I think a lot of questions have come out of that, and we kind of spoke about behavior change around weight loss and fitness, and kind of how our mind is guiding us one way or the other. Seeking out hard, challenging choices, decisions, environments to kind of make us stronger, kind of show us, quote unquote, what we're made of, sort of thing. Taking that one step further, let's say you get to that point where you've lost the 50 pounds, you've lost, the nighttime snacking habit, you've kicked all of that. How do we kind of embrace all that we've accomplished while kind of not beating ourselves up then and feeling guilty if, let's say, one night we do kind of fall back into, diving through a bag of chips on the couch? How do we kind of wrap our mind around that?
Good question, Jim, because, there's the weight loss or the exercise habit or the, arrest the eating pattern that you're trying to minimize or get rid of. And then there's the maintenance of that, right? And there are two different, there's a skill set you need to get to do the first part is not necessarily the same skill set that you need for the maintenance. And that's why a lot of people, fall and then go back, right? So my answer to that question is a classic, it's prevalent in addictions counseling and of all sorts of substances and behaviors. So it applies to this as well. And when you're in the maintenance phase, you gotta identify when you're having perfectionistic thinking. And what I mean by that is, if I did this once, I fell off the plan, I messed up, I might as well then just keep eating. You've got to really stay conscious of avoiding what I call slipping off the edge, right? Or the ledge. And then the addictions counseling mindset is this: don't let a slip become a relapse. Like, you're going to have slips. You're not going to do it perfectly. You're going to have, half a bag of chips and, be upset about it. It's when you then get upset about it and then do it again and again and again. And now you're reestablishing the habit that you, extincted. And why you're doing that is because your mind got upset about the one time, right? So you got to let go of perfectionistic thinking. You got to give yourself some wiggle room and flexibility. And then you've got to say, okay, I slipped, but a slip does not mean that I'm going to fall back into my old behaviors. And then you get, you tighten up again,
Yeah. Yeah. I think that let's kind of think of it in terms of like overall calories, right? A half a bag of chips is what, 700 calories. In the grand scheme of things, over the course of a week, that's
one
5%.
1/6 of a pound, right?
Yeah, like it's very, very minimal. So if everything else is pretty good, then that half a bag of chips is relatively meaningless. From a
Unless, of course, your mind gets into,
Right.
oh, I messed up, so therefore 600 calories, it might as well be 2,600 calories, because if I mess up a little, they don't do the, you have to do, if you do the math, you can help talk yourself off the ledge. 600 calories is not the same as 3 bags of those chips at, 1,600 each, right? But in your head, because you're upset because you didn't do it perfectly, somehow you'll make that seem as if it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not.
Are there any kind of skills or tactics, tips, exercises that you would encourage people to do if they find themselves stuck in that perfectionist mindset? Anything that you recommend that they try to give themselves a little bit of grace and, kind of look forward rather than kind of self-sabotaging themselves?
Yep, there's an acronym I'm going to quote for you. It's PAW, PAW, okay? And it stands for 3 behavioral steps. The first one is, you just had the third of the bag of chips, the rest of it's sitting right there. You're getting upset, you're upset about it. P stands for pause. Take a breath, right? And slow down the reaction of the reactionary behavior of now continuing to do it, or getting the ice cream and now the Girl Scout cookies that are going to go with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So pause. And then A stands for assess. Assess can also be observe. Okay, kind of what did I do here? Like you just said, I'll do the math. That was 600 calories. All right, that's a 1/6 of a pound. That's not even going to show up on the scale if I don't keep going right now. So you're kind of assessing the situation. You pause, assess the situation, and then W stands for apply willpower. That's the W for the acronym. But what you're really doing there is then saying, okay, like I'm going to pull back my volition. Like, what am I have goals. I want to maintain this weight loss that I worked so hard to achieve, or, I really don't want to slip back into this behavior of the nighttime eating that really made me feel terrible. I would wake up every morning, feeling a food coma or GI distress, or I didn't sleep well because I'm doing it late at night, whatever, all right, I have to put some willpower back in here again. But you pause, you've assessed, and then you say, okay, put the bag away, walk away from the kitchen, right? So PAW, pause, assess, and then apply your directive, your willpower, your aspiration. What is it that you're trying to achieve? And then just, redirect yourself to that.
Yeah. One other aspect of a weight loss journey that the PAW acronym might apply to is stepping on the scale. Again, this same person, they've lost the 30, 40, 50 pounds that they wanted to. They step on the scale. They've seen that going down and down and down over weeks and weeks and months. They get there, and then one day, 1 week, they see the scales start to creep up a pound, maybe 2 pounds. And then it starts to, fluctuate like it always does. Does that PAW acronym still apply there to kind of wrap our head around that fear of, oh, shoot, I lost 50 pounds and now I'm on my way back to gaining it?
I almost like that when that happens sometimes to clients, because you got to stay vigilant. I just had a client this morning. She's not at maintenance yet, but we were talking about getting to it. And what she said was like, do I have to be like this for the rest of my life? Like, am I going to be able to eat like, and just like be able to, like, when I finally get to my goal weight, am I going to be able to eat like just like I want to, like a normal person? And I said, I just want to say, draw your attention to something. A normal person right now, if normal means most common, is diabetic and overweight.
Yeah.
And that's how normal people are eating. I go, so you got to like take a look at that. I go, if you're going to go down, you're going to get to your weight, and then you're going to have some wiggle room now because you don't have to create the deficit anymore, to keep the scale going down. But you can't just say, okay, now I can, throw caution to the wind and just like eat like a hedonist, because that is going to be mutually exclusive from the body you want. So, and in my practice of 40 years, nobody linearly just goes down linearly. It's always a, down and then an up and then a hold and then a down up, and but there's a trend, trending down.
Yeah.
And so maintenance kind of had the practice through the weight loss journey that, all right, maybe there's a little more fecal matter in my bowel today that the scale's up, maybe I'm holding some, fluid because I had a very salty meal because I ate out, last night, or so you've had some practice on the way down to know that you don't nail a number, you know what I mean? There's like a bit of a range. And then, so if you see the scale goes up, it's like, okay, you again, like kind of assess what have I done the last couple of days? Have I gotten a little sloppy? Do I need to tighten up a little bit? Have I been pretty much spot on? And what is this about? And you don't panic. You kind of say, okay, maybe it's one of these other things we just mentioned. As a woman, is maybe you're 4 days outside of your bleeding phase, your menstrual cycle, and you got endometrial tissue, building, there's a whole host of reasons why that scale is going to vacillate up and down. So you kind of, don't get too panicked, and then you get a couple other data points.
What
right?
would those other data points be, do you think?
Well, like tomorrow weigh in, like if you've been
Yeah.
on the plan and you feel like you've been good with maintenance and it's up, rather than panic, say, okay, let me see what happens tomorrow. Because I haven't really been off the plan that much. I had a little indiscretion, but like, I assessed it. It was like 600 calories. This must not be, if the scale goes up 2 pounds, unless you ate 7,000, like just doing the math, supposedly, that's
Yeah.
7,000 extra calories. Yeah, probably not like in one meal,
Yeah.
And I have clients that will say to me, yeah, I know it was that, it was that can of soda I had. I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have had it. That's what made me gain 4 pounds. I'm like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah. Yeah, there's other larger rocks to be focusing on than the 120 calorie can of soda.
Exactly.
I think too, the scale kind of brings us back to that sort of perfectionist mindset and looking at things over the long term, right? Because if you're stepping on the scale every day and you're letting it dictate your emotions, it's going to be one crappy weight loss journey for you. So when you have, and I'm sure everybody's different, obviously, but is there a strategy that you recommend for stepping on the scale during that weight loss phase, and then once you get to maintenance, do you change it up anyway? How do you recommend people tackle that?
There's a lot of variation depending on the person, of course, but generally there's people who like to get on the scale every day, and it does help them. It's like an assessment thing. It's kind of like checking your checkbook register on your online account, or measuring your food just to make sure you're not going over. So for some people, it does serve as a kind of awareness tool. For some other people, like you just said, Jim, it's like it could be like a psychological flogging, right? And get very upset, and it can lead them to go off their trajectory or their maintenance or the way down because they get upset about it. So my general recommendation is, whether you're somebody who wants to weigh in every day or somebody who doesn't want to do that, I always say, if you're weighing in every day, that's kind of like watching the hour by hour on the stock market, in a day.
Yeah.
Like, there's so much fluctuation. You can't draw any conclusions by that, right? But if you want to do that because it's somehow helping you, that's fine. But I'll say pick one, though, like Monday morning, thing out of bed every Monday, you eliminate your bowel, you get on the scale naked. You've got standardized this so that each Monday because Monday's not the same as Wednesday morning. Your behaviors are different coming up, coming
Right.
off a weekend versus the middle of the week, and so you're using one weigh in. And for the people who don't like to weigh themselves in all the time, I say, yeah, but we do want to track this. So one time, and that's your tracker. And for the people weighing in all the time, I definitely stay away from multiple times a day because that gets a little crazy, right?
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
you're chasing minutia, and it's nothing's going to happen in 3 hours, right? That's going to show up on a scale, except you drank water, and now you got upset because it's up a pound, right?
Right.
So like you're tracking one way, and even if you're weighing yourself more frequently than let's say every day, because now you're tracking the trend, and then if you don't like to weigh yourself every day, I generally say, once a week is a good indicator. Now I have other people, and that they just like the scale just really wigs them out. Psychologically it can really mess them up. And I say, you know what? Let's not use the scale then. Yes, let's use a girth measurement. Let's use the thigh measurement with a measuring tape. Let's use a pair of jeans, that you wash and you put in the dryer and then you put them on. You know what I mean? And that's kind of that's your test, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes it doesn't have to be a scale, although, that's the most common. And, there's a lot of literature, I'm sure you've seen this, Jim, about whether or not we should be even focusing on the scale at all.
Right.
I am a believer of use the scale. I mean, most people are trying to lose weight. It's like, to say, oh, don't use the scale. It's, you're focusing on the wrong thing. I'm like, that's like saying to somebody, I don't know if I have a good metaphor for this, but like, that's exactly what they're trying to do. So to tell them not to do that is kind of like, so
Yeah.
against that.
Yeah, I agree. I think, in the minimal cases that I've come across where it is just a really detrimental activity to somebody's progress, from a mental aspect,
Yeah, yeah,
then we avoid it. But
right.
I've only encountered that,
Or somebody who has like it's really come off a history of extreme an eating disorder.
Yep.
In those cases, they're like you said, they're rare. They're much.
Yeah.
The average person is not in that category.
Yeah. So I think we've touched on a handful of good things here. One thing that I like to just dive into briefly here is that this sort of your weight loss journey might end. You'll reach your goal and the weight loss journey will end at that point, let's say, but your health journey continues on. And you need to be engaged. You need to be an active participant in the process. You need to be paying attention, really on a daily basis for the most part. Sure, you go on vacation, whatever, have fun. You're at a graduation party. Sure, take your foot off the gas a little bit. I think that's fine to enjoy yourself. But how do we get the weight loss community, the chronic dieters, how do we get them to wrap their head around the duration of this whole thing and appreciate that this journey, this overall journey, is going to take years, decades even?
So I've worked with a large number, a good number of women and men who are like over 100 pounds overweight when they start with me. Okay. And I've never been in that situation, right? So through discussions with them in the earlier phases of the work, what I've become very sensitive to is that when somebody is looking at this monster huge, like that's a person, that's an adult person that you have to lose. And it's a daunting task. And you're thinking, oh my God, like and then you're thinking about this is going to take forever. And then, in a similar vein, like let's say you've lost, like for the rest of my life, I have to be vigilant, or I have like, it's a cognitive distortion in cognitive behavioral therapy. It's called globalizing. And what it means is that you're taking this moment in time and you're now making this moment going to be forever. Or like the dauntingness of this task is going to be, it's like so overwhelming, right? That it prohibits the people from being able to even take the first step, right? So I tell everybody when it comes to maintenance, as well as on the way down, especially if you've got a really big, weight loss journey ahead of you, you don't want to overwhelm yourself because it will demotivate you. It'll take the air right out of your sails, right? So you're gonna zoom lens in. You're gonna say, just for today, I'm gonna follow this plan. And tomorrow, when tomorrow comes, just for tomorrow, and then just for the next day, because now you can kind of, it's like chunking it up. It's like you're like, I can handle today, in your maintenance plan. All right, just for today, I still have to kind of, be vigilant a little bit. I can't really, or like you said, you mentioned you go on vacation. All right, I'm on vacation. I got a little wiggle room. I can't throw the baby out with the bathwater here, but I can still, I got a little wiggle room. And just for today, I'm gonna give myself that. But like, don't go bigger than that. Like, stay in the chunk that you can, your nervous system can kind of control. And I'll tell you how this applies. As you know, I have an ultra distance history, right? So when I've done these ultra distance runs that are over 100 miles, and you get to mile 50, everything hurts. You want to abort. Just you're like, what am I doing this for? You're halfway through, and it's, I don't even know, like 18 hours in, right?
Yeah.
That's the same thing as the weight loss task of somebody who's got 100 pounds, right? And I will say to myself, okay, I'm just going to run 1 mile and then, assess from there. And that 1 mile let me back up. I'll say, okay, I'm halfway there. I only have 50 more to go. And then I'll watch like my internal nervous system blow a gasket. Oh my God, 50 miles more. I'm never going to be able to do it. And like, I have a whole, like, I'm watching it happen inside my own mind. And I'm like, okay, wait, stop. Don't think about the 50. Like this, think about 25. That's like a marathon. You can do a marathon. And then I go, oh my God, no, that's a marathon. Are you kidding me? I'm tired. And then I get down like 10K, 5K. Okay, how about 1 mile? Like, can you handle 1 mile? And my nervous system goes, all right, maybe. And that's what I focus in on with 50 more to go, right? So that's metaphoric for this whole weight loss journey. It's like, if you're looking at the big picture and you feel yourself like internally hyperventilating about it, like zoom the narrow lens in and go as small as you need to. And I'm going to reference another role model here. Last year in 2020, Ironman Florida was the only Ironman they ran, pandemic, right? History was made because it was the first time a Down syndrome person completed completed an Ironman, right?
Yeah. Yep.
He finished with a T-shirt on, and if anybody watched any of his interviews, he was saying that the way he got himself to do it, and this is like a full-out Down syndrome person. He talks, like a Down syndrome person, and he completed. I cried, like hearing this and then watching his interviews. But his mantra, and his motto was 1% improvement consistently. So when he woke up and he was like, there was days like he just couldn't handle his training, for whatever phase he was in his training plan, he was like, I just have to do 1%. I can't do 0. I just hold on to that 1 freaking percent today. I walk a quarter of a mile, but I got that in and I didn't let go of like I didn't drop the ropes kind of thing.
Yep.
And that's his mantra. And I think that's applicable to what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You can't throw the towel in. Even if you're, like I tell people when I'm explaining this to a client, I say, listen, even if you ate the whole freaking sleeve of Girl Scout cookies, but you leave one, that's the 1%. You could have eaten that one. You're still in the game.
Yep.
Get the hell out of the kitchen.
Yeah. I think kind of chunking stuff up into like short-term
bite-sized bits, right?
Yeah. Those achievements are going to keep you in the game longer than thinking, oh man, I got 100 pounds to lose. That's going to take me 3 years.
The rest of my life. Right.
Yeah. I think that's good. I mean, you're talking about, 100-mile runs. I did a 12-mile run over the weekend, and I kind of broke it up into quarters, thinking like, okay, I'm going to run 6 miles out and back. So, all right, I'm at 3 miles, just another 3 until I turn around. And then, I'm 6 miles from home, 3 miles, halfway back, I'm halfway. So
perfect example. And your brain could get a hold of that, right? And say, okay, I can, I can handle 3 miles, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's just one more, and it's the same sort of principle with your nutrition. You have a really good day of eating. Let's stack another day of really good eating on top of that. How many
And don't
days?
worry
can
about the rest
you
of the
do
week or
better?
the rest of the month, just one more day, right? Right.
Yeah, cool. I think that was all of the questions that our clients submitted. Oh, one more, and then I'll let you go. I appreciate all of your time over the
Sure.
last couple of days. So you're kind of like what we were talking about with the vacation or the graduation party or whatever. You're going to give yourself a little bit of a leash. How do you kind of come to terms with being in a situation where you're on a diet, you've got certain goals, and you're in a situation where the food available just is not optimal, and you're looking at it and you're like, oh man, you know, this isn't really the healthiest stuff, and I know I'm going to eat it and I'm going to feel bad about it later. How do we allow ourselves to eat that, you know, those sort of taboo foods without feeling guilty, and enjoy that situation rather than fearing it?
So my strategy for that is like, you didn't gain 100 pounds because you had like one, uh, cup of white pasta, you know? So when you're facing, a buffet and it's ziti and pasta and French, Italian bread and butter, and that's the only carbs that are on the, available to you. I have a lot of clients, I'll say, well, what do you do in that? What did you do in that situation? They're like, well, I had the salad dry, and then I didn't have any of the starchy stuff because it's not the right stuff. And then and they think that was the better choice because they didn't want to eat the food that's not on the plan.
Yeah.
And I go, okay, now play that out for me. Like, 3 hours later after the banquet, and you had salad dry, maybe you had some chicken that you pulled out of another, like the chicken marsala, and you stuck that on the salad, because that's typically what I hear, because they're
Yeah.
not going to eat the bad food, right? And then 3 hours later, they get home starving, and they downed a Ben and Jerry's, half gallon or whatever.
Yeah.
I go, have, look at what's available, make your decision, and then, keep it within a legitimate portion. You know what I mean? Just because you're eating the bad food doesn't mean you have to go hog wild on the bad food, right?
Right.
So you can have something off the plan. You just can't have unlimited portions of what's off the plan.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Like, kind of keeping things in perspective. In
Especially if you
addition,
said, like, you're on vacation, that's not your normal. That's not what you're doing in everyday life. So, if you're saying to me, it's my everyday life and I'm going to the vending machine and I'm, every day at lunch, that's what I'm doing. That's a different thing, right? Now
Right.
you've got a bad habit going, and we got to look at that. But you're on vacation, or you're at the sport banquet, or, it's these outlier kind of situations, they're not your normal, right? And you got to come up with a strategy for when they come, because they're going to be repetitive, but they're not every single day, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. I had a previous client that she would turn down social gatherings because she didn't know how to navigate them from a nutrition end. And I asked her, I was like, you prepared to do that for the next 30 years? I don't think so. So let's come up with a game plan so you
Figure it
can,
out, right?
yeah, so you don't have to turn your friends down all the time when,
Yeah. Here's the parallel I hear. Well, I'm going to start this plan, but we're not going to eat, we're not going out to dinner. This is pre-pandemic. We're not going to go out to dinner, for the next 2 months. I'm like, really? Like, just like you said, that's going to be your strategy for the rest of your life? Because I don't think so.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen when you do go out to dinner? You got you're caught with your pants down. Let's figure this
Right.
out. Okay.
Yeah. I think it's, so just to wrap all of this up and put a nice bow on it, I feel like the key themes from this Q&A are kind of embrace the length of the journey, challenge yourself and learn how you can be as successful as you need to be in different situations, and it never really ends. You have to be engaged, you have to participate in your own journey, and you have to want to learn about yourself and how to be the best version of yourself from a nutrition and exercise end, so you can get where you want to be.
Exactly. You can't check out. You know, you got to stay aware of yourself. Unfortunately, that's how it works. And thank God we're not a kangaroo, that we actually have self-reflection. Like, so don't throw that out. Like, that's what differentiates us from the rest of the animals.
Yeah.
Use that skill.
Yeah. I mean, every day, how we eat, how we exercise is just providing us with information to take to the next day and see how we can apply it.
Mhm.
Cool. Let me let's see. We got any last questions in here? No. All right. You are officially off the hot seat, Judy.
Woohoo.
Thank you so much.
Great, Jim. Okay.